That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Comic Reviews. I hope this is working right. Having a bit of trouble since this program went through an update. Oh, and sorry about... Oh, other way. Sorry about that. Alright, so I think we should be good. Let me do some checking here. Yeah, it looks like everything's working out alright. I'll work on getting better at this whole technology thing. Anyway, we got a pretty good-sized week tonight, and I also don't have a trade, so no trade talk. Unfortunately, I just... very busy, what with the move. As you can see, I got stuff just not behind me at all. A quick tour. There's an empty shelf. There's what's left of my Legos. Glass removed there. Comic shelf almost completely empty. Got a couple boxes and stuff left, but yeah, that's one room. So working on the move, and so some things just gotta give, but I'm working on making sure Geeky Gentleman isn't one of those things. Damn it, I can't. Directions are hard. Plus, I have dyslexia. All right, so that all said, let's just go ahead and get into stuff for this week and start talking comics, shall we? Alright, so we'll be starting off with Star Wars Darth Vader number 19, followed by The Flash number 52, Wonder Woman number 52, Sandman Universe number 1, Predator Hunters 2 number 1, Superman number 2, and Supergirl number 21. 21? Yeah, I guess new creative team as opposed to news number 1. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, lots to get into, and not gonna waste a whole lot of time. So let's just start talking comics. So yeah, starting off with Darth Vader number 19. Just okay. That's a funny thing to say with this book, because my main complaint on Soule is he stops putting a lot of effort into different arcs on his books as he writes them. And that might be the case here. Though before I get too much into the story, I just want to say I really love this cover. That is fantastic. I really like the look of that. It's such a cool parody, I guess, almost of the original Star Wars posters. But I don't know. This certainly has interesting ideas and things that happen in it. With Vader finding a Jedi who started a new life and got a family and stuff, and there's even lines that I quite like in it. No, I won't let you take them. We shall see, Jedi. I told you, Sith, I am no Jedi, not anymore. I am a husband, as of today a father, and to protect the ones I love, your doom. You know, it's a little melodramatic and everything, but I dig it. It's a cool line in the middle of an action scene. You know, my name is Inigo Montoya. I quite like that. And the Inquisitors steal a baby, which is pretty, pretty just evil. And it's not just that they steal a baby. They're all right, fine, we're gonna let you go with your baby. And then as they're leaving on transport, reaches out with the Force and steals the baby. And I was like, wow, that's pretty fucked. And I do like the scene afterwards. Go back, Father, we have to go back. We can't, Myra. If we go back, we'll die. We can't fight that. And there's still a chance they didn't kill your babe. They took her. They wanted her for something. That means she's still alive. Someday, maybe we can. But wanted her for what? Yeah, it's an interesting moment. I like it. Vader gets, pretty much tosses the guy around, and then it's basically just all back to Coruscant. Apparently stealing babies is just a thing Vader's been up to, stealing Force-sensitive children, which makes the beginning of Rebels a little weird, because it seemed that Rebels was kind of set on the idea that this is the first time Vader and Palpatine really thought about children, which honestly contradicts one of the arcs in Clone Wars, so whatever. Vader has a force vision, and they're thinking about hunting down more Jedi, but now they're going to be harder and harder to get as time goes on. And two of the Inquisitors are having a drink and talking about what will they do once they kill all the Jedi, and what will Vader do? And they're like, oh, he'll find someone to kill. He always does. He just, like, appears behind him and turns on his lightsaber. I'm like, okay. I guess Vader's gonna just mutilate the Inquisitors for funsies again. It's cool, it's fine. So yeah, I like things in this, but I'm not impressed by anything in this significantly. Like, I like some of the dialogue, I like the moment with the stolen baby, but I'm not like, oh man, this is really good, this is really interesting, this is Star Wars to me. And so that worries me, that whatever arc this is a part of is going to be one of the weaker arcs. And I don't know, that seems unfair. I'll often sit here and talk about, like, not everything has to be amazing, not everything has to blow you away. I'm fine with just, this sounds shittier than I mean for it to, but I am fine with passable, acceptable entertainment. I'm fine with, not turn your brain off, but, like, it's not meant to be profound, it's not meant to change your life, it's just, you know, it's a story, some art, some fun. I'm fine with that. Everyone can do that. Everyone needs that. You know, by definition, not everything can be excellent, right? So, like, normally, if there were a book like this, it'd be like, yeah, it's fine. It's cool. For Charles Soule, as the writer on it, it makes me worried because in the past, for my experience with him at least, when he starts off fine, it's cool, that's a sign that the following is about to be less than spectacular. So, alright, let's go ahead and move along and talk about The Flash, number 52. So I initially said I wasn't going to be getting this, and I fully meant to, but I didn't notice this was on my pull list today, which is crazy because I totally noticed Exiles was, and I threw that back on the shelf. I just ended up not taking this off my pull, and you know what? Kind of glad I didn't, because I really like this scene. This was a lot of fun, and honestly, it makes me kind of want to keep reading the run. I'm a big Grant Morrison fan, so directly tying this into multiversity like that, like, it's not even just, okay, he goes to the same place. No, they straight show the map of the multiverse as the first panel of the issue, and I'm like, alright, I can dig it. It's super fun. I was like, no way. Then I turned the page, and it's like, it's the Flash addressing the multiverse flashes. And I'm like, okay, I'm down. I'm down for that. That's really cool. Lots of fun stuff in here. We even get the speedster character that was in Multiversity, which is pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty good. I also really like this design for Barry Allen's costume that the writer or artist is doing. I mean, the lines in red are a bit much, but I really like the design and the angle and everything of the earpieces on the cowl. It does feel a little reminiscent of Wally West, but at the same time, I'm kind of digging it. Just something about the design, it really works for me there. And again, just, I don't know, multiverse flashes. Ultimately, I will say, it has the problem of, oh, that's really cool. It means nothing. Like, all the Flash does in this opening scene... Sorry, I'm just going to adjust my camera just a little bit. All the Flash does in this opening scene is like, hey, has anyone heard of these other forces besides the Speed Force? And all these other Flashes just go, nope. And so that's like, I don't know, it is like a, ooh, look at the shiny thing, but at the same time, it's short enough, it's a brief enough part of the book, and I did have fun seeing it, so I can't complain too much. It's not like it's a misdirect that they're gonna get some kind of answer. It just shows you that it establishes how much or how unknown these forces are that none of the other multiverse Flashes know anything about these other forces, right? Like, that's the thing that's kind of working for me. So, I don't know, that's like, you could make an argument either way for how well of a story choice that was, I feel, is what I'm kind of getting at. And then it cuts to, like, this whole thing with the Trickster and these Central City police officers building up a case against Warden Wolf. And Trickster gets, like, kidnapped and yada 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 yada. So it just leads to Flash having to stop some winged people. They call themselves Para-Angels, which I've never heard of, but obviously, like, just from the design and everything, they look like a play on parademons. So I'm not sure what to make of that. Otherwise, I don't know. So, like, Flash has to stop them from killing the Trickster. Commander Cold shows up, who's stuck in the past, and helps. Trickster gets away, though, and then gets absorbed into the street. And then, you know, a bunch of stuff with Flash and Cold and Barry kind of moping around and trying to figure things out. I get a whole scene here with Iris that I actually quite liked. I love how this scene ends. Beep beep. That's Cold. He thinks he's found Trickster. Remember to play nice. Why are you always a few steps ahead of me? You'll catch up one day. Like, I don't know, that's just a really cute scene between Barry and Iris. It makes them feel like they actually have a relationship. So I don't know, that's fun. That kind of stuff works for me. It's using the super speed in a fun way. Anyway, Barry shows up with Cold and he's like, I think I've found a source of the strength force. And then all of a sudden, fist out of the ground, and out comes the Trickster being confronted by, or being, like, transformed by the strength force. And I gotta say, pretty cool art. I'm really digging the art in this arc, or this first issue for this arc. It's pretty sweet. I really like the detail on Flash. Again, the design of this costume is really working for me. Again, particularly the ear things. They look really cool with the glowy lightning effect. This version of Trickster doesn't have an arm. So he's got, like, this rock arm thing as part of the strength force. And yeah, he kind of just surprises both of them. And kind of walks off, and the tease at the end is, next, super strong Trickster versus Central City. So, I don't know. It's fun. I enjoyed it. It's like a little adventure kind of issue. There's, you know, some kind of mystery in the background with these other forces and whatnot. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But I liked it. I kind of dug it. It wasn't bad. Good Ranger says, it's nice when a writer acknowledges larger elements from other sources to build a mystery. Yeah, I agree with that. That's pretty good. Philip Kelton says, wait, there's a force for every ability? No, the Flash War thing culminated in other forces being introduced. Because there's the Speed Force, which is like, you know, what Flash uses to run faster than the speed of light and all that stuff. And then one of his villains used the Flashes to break the Speed Force barrier, cosmic science crap. And so now we have multiple forces. So there's the Strength Force, the Sage Force, and what's the other? The Strength Force, the Sage Force, and the Still Force. Like, again, I talked about this a little bit last time, but I'll say it again. I like the Strength Force. I think the Strength Force makes a lot of sense, and at as much sense as the Speed Force makes, I think the Strength Force makes sense too. Sage Force and Still Force, like, maybe there were just better names for those, but I really don't like them, because Sage Force, from the little of it we've seen, is like telekinetic abilities, and Still Force, I don't recall what that does. because I don't think we saw too much of Zoom using it, and if we did, it wasn't in a significant enough way. Philip Culton says there should also be a slow force. Yeah, I guess that could be a thing. Alright, let's go ahead and move on. Talk about Wonder Woman number 52. This is the continued brief run, that Steve Orlando is doing until G. Willow Wilson hops on the book, starting at issue 59. So I was really, really impressed with Steve Orlando's first issue on Wonder Woman, and now it looks like he's doing kind of a brief arc. I don't know how many parts this is going to be, but he's introduced Aztec and Artemis into the story. Now let me say, I know of Artemis a bit here and there through her, varied appearances in Wonder Woman continuity. It seems that it seems that Rebirth gave her a new origin, and that she's part of, an offshoot of Amazon. Some Amazons that, self-exiled or did an exodus. It's fine, it's whatever. It's a good way to have Artemis and Wonder Woman running around and have a bit of a butting head relationship, so I quite like that. Aztec I haven't seen since Grant Morrison Justice League in the 90s, which I did a whole series of trade talk on if you want to go check that out. So we've got a new Aztec, and she's pretty new to the position and all this stuff. And she seeks out Wonder Woman to tell her of a vision she had of an Amazon fighting, and so Wonder Woman's like, I know who that is by this description of a scar that you mentioned. We need to go save her, but first we need someone else to help us, and so they go and get Artemis. And Artemis and Wonder Woman don't exactly get along, so I don't know, that's kind of interesting, and it's cool to see Aztec back in DC continuity. I will say this artist really is aping a lot of Gal Gadot in the way they're drawing Wonder Woman's face. I don't approve. I don't like that very much at all, but what can you do? I like all the... This is a huge exposition book, but to be fair, pretty sure this is the first time we've seen Aztec in Rebirth, or at least the first time she's shown up in Wonder Woman. And if you haven't been reading Red Hood and the Outlaws, because, it's Red Hood and the Outlaws who reads that book, throw the shade. Salt. Just pour salt. So if you haven't been reading Red Hood and the Outlaws, you're probably not going to know what Artemis's background is, so they got to explain how these two work and what's going on. And Orlando does a pretty good job of it in just a couple pages. Let's see here. We've got an explanation for who all the major players are by this point in the book, and there's this much left to focus on action, basically. So we get, I'd say, about a third is spent on exposition, and what's really important is the exposition is done really effectively, and you get everything you need, and then you start getting cool reveals. So, I really like this scene where it's just pretty much the last bit of exposition. So they start off, and I'm going to try to block this. They start off looking at an Aztec pyramid, and they're like, there's no way that an Amazon is trapped here. The stone is too weak. You've got to be off about where your Aztec gods have trapped her. And she's like, there's more than meets the eye about this temple. And she uses her helmet's ability to show what is unseen. And so you can see the stone pyramid down there. And then this is what she reveals. And that's really fucking cool. I really like that. That's really neat and interesting. It's a cool way to blend comic bookified mythology in there. It's the same this is the same universe where Ares is a bad guy and blah blah blah. So it's definitely not accurate to Aztec mythology, but it's definitely not trying to be. It's just trying to use that wheelhouse for some cool ideas, just like they're using Artemis connected to the Egyptian gods as some cool ideas. So we got these competing mythologies coming together, and that's pretty cool. And I quite like that. The artist uses this as a really good way to get a lot of cool panel layouts using the, like, what would you call that, hieroglyph kind of style to do panel layouts and stuff. And it looks really neat. I like that quite a bit. Like this, it's a great shot. That's a great page right there. So they go through the temple looking for this hidden Amazon who's apparently Diana's aunt. Not a story beat I love, but I'll take it. And then they spring a trap of this giant jaguar beast. And I love just, again, the artist does a really cool job rendering this. That's really properly flamboyant and, really expressive, which fits with a perception of Aztec lore, I guess you'd call it. So that's really cool. Quite like that. Get into a whole thing about Artemis using a bow, and that's like, see Red Hood and the Outlaws. I'm like, no thanks. But, there's fighting going on and stuff, and stuff, and then they find the Amazon, and she says she's been trapped here fighting off invaders every solstice for years. But now she just can't do it anymore, and then we get, the terror armies of Tezcatlipoca. Don't you laugh at me trying to pronounce some Aztec. Oh. The terror armies of Tezcatlipoca stand ready, and then we get like this. And again, it's a cool design. It's comic bookifying things. It's fun. I enjoy this stuff quite a bit. It's like, deep in conquered 13 heavens, the terror armies of Tezcatlipoca stand ready. Perhaps Atlanta, but not for us. Karate pose! Fun. I had fun with this. It's not like as good a story, certainly, as the last issue, but it's a fun setup. It's a cool team dynamic to use. I like the idea of Wonder Woman dealing with these mystical threats. I think that really works. These mythical threats, I think that really works. It's why I think she's great to be the team leader of Justice League Dark. Just a lot about this really working for me, and in just a fun, cool way. So, good stuff. Alrighty, let's go ahead and move on to the Sandman universe, number 1. Okay, so I didn't know this was happening. Neil Gaiman is signing off to do a whole line of books all connected to Sandman and continuing the story. And this is where it's all starting. He's not going to be the one writing them, but he's plotted the story out, and other people will be writing. Which makes me happier than the alternative, which is he'd had nothing to do with it and is just collecting a paycheck. I'm not sure how well it's going to be written. But this first issue is certainly symptomatic of the thing that this book is doing, which is trying to set up a multiple book series, where it just gives you little brief snippets of all these plots that will be happening in the different books. But which that can be really confusing, and you feel like you're just getting a taste for everything. That's like, I don't know if I really should have spent $5 on this issue. But at the same time, with how disjointed and weird the first issue of Sandman was, when you think about it, like the way it jumped all over time and told you all this weird stuff that was going on, it's not like that's not okay to do in Sandman. We do a lot of like really weird time jumpy stuff. I remember a couple years ago when I was reviewing Sandman for Trade Talk, at a certain point I just gave up trying to summarize it because it's such an intricately detailed and really really complex plot. And so it's not like this doesn't work, and ultimately the reveal in here, the moment in here, does kind of justify why everything is happening at once, what's weird about what's going on. A lot of it really works. And so I'm not going to try to explain the plot too much, except to say that the cliffhanger definitely gets me really interested. Wherein Lucien, the librarian, reveals that Daniel has quit. I think he's quit, is what he says, because he's standing in the gallery looking at his helm, and it's in shatters, and no one can get to him, and it's just, chaos in the dreaming. As like it's so interesting how this book opens, because you get the dreaming, and it's like all serene and beautiful and it's so cool looking, and then you get the end where you see this crack opening up in the sky and all these crazy things are happening, and you begin to get like a tease of what's going on when Lucien, the librarian, is going through his library and he sees a missing book and doesn't know what it is, why it's not there, and what's supposed to be there. And so you just get this sense that like things are going wrong, things are disturbed in the dreaming, and you immediately feel Daniel's absence throughout the dreaming. It's kind of crazy. So a lot of things are introduced here, a lot of craziness. Some absolutely stunning artwork right off the bat. Get some really crazy, nightmarish, scary things. Some very interesting and definitely intriguing plot threads are started up. And we don't know where they're going to go or what's going to happen. And so, I'll say it made me want to pick up at least the first issue of every one of these titles to see where it's going. I will say there's not a great command of transition. Like this page is actually a pretty good example, because this kind of concludes where one story is going to start going, and then this just starts another one, and it's like there's no transition, it just happens. Kind of the through line through all this is Matthew the Raven looking for Daniel, and you just kind of see him coming across these scenes, and I'm like, that's okay, but it's just, I don't know, it feels awkward at best. It feels like there's just a little shaky on transitions for this through line, and that bothers me. I did really like the scene with Lucifer. That does legit get me interested, but at the same time, I've never read Lucifer. Let's see, Raccoon Ranger says, Ian, are you intrigued by any of the story threads the most? Which one intrigues me the most? It's definitely where the fuck's Daniel and what the hell he's doing. Because, damn, that's like kind of crazy that he just abandons the dreaming after Morpheus went through so much to get the dreaming back in order, and then kind of handed it off to Daniel as he died. I love this image of Daniel, though, in the rain. And, like, he just doesn't let any of it touch him. That's so cool. But, yeah, really, really interesting read here. And what you got to remember is Daniel's such a different character than Morpheus. And that's something a lot of people had a lot of trouble comprehending. Like, not only in the real world, but in the story, people had trouble comprehending the idea that Daniel and Morpheus weren't the same person. Like, Daniel remembers being Morpheus, but he's not anymore, and that's really fascinating. Yeah, lots of interesting stuff going on here, and I quite liked it. So yeah, I'm certainly curious. So what are the books? We've got The Dreaming, which is out in September. Books of Magic, which is out at the end of October. House of Whispers, which is out in the middle of September, and Lucifer, which is out in the middle of October. It does legit get me interested. Can't lie. We shall see. I'll put it that way. I think I'll pick up the first issue of every book. The one I want to pick up the most is definitely Dreaming. That was the one I was planning to pick up. But I don't know. Philip Kelton says, is this like Doctor Who? I guess a little bit, but, you know, Dream resurrecting himself was, like, I feel bad for spoiling it for you, and I do feel bad, but at the same time, I've had this conversation with Philip Kelton before. Just go fucking read Sandman and be done with this conversation. I can't explain Sandman to you. You just have to read it and you'll thank me. Yeah, so there's you can say that element's there, but it's not the way you're thinking it is. It's much more complicated. Alright. So yeah, lots of cool stuff here. Again, really love a lot of the artwork. Bunch of different artists on display here. Different styles showing up. I will say it's definitely X-rated, or not X-rated, R-rated. Lots of violence and boobies, but not in a tasteless way. I did love this scene with Lucifer. Fly free then, and become that symbol, hope. Oh, Lucifer, what are you speaking of? You think that hope may free us from a bind. It is the cruelest prison Yahweh built, for from it there is almost no escape. Where you go, you must take no hope. No hope. Ah. That's good. I really like that line. That was pretty damn good. Yeah, Akuma Ranger, get on me with this. Just whatever you're doing, even watching this stream, is nowhere near as important as just the need to go read Sandman. Like, if you say you're a comics fan, you need to read Sandman at this point. And it's not like me trying to gatekeep or test people. I'm just like, no, if you like comics, you should definitely read Sandman, because it is just jaw-dropping art that isn't ashamed about being a comic book and doesn't try to make a point of comics. It's just a jaw-dropping piece of art that chose to be told in a comic book, and that just so happened to be the best possible place for it. That's just why everyone should read Sandman, and then the world would be a better place. Alright. Let's go ahead and move on and talk about Predator Hunters 2, number 1. So, a couple months back, maybe a year back, I don't know, did the volume Predator Hunters, which was just kind of a series about a group of people who survived predator attacks, who got together to go hunt predators. And I loved the concept right from the get-go, and a lot of the execution actually was not half bad. It did leave me a little by the time we got to the end. This second volume, though, now that it's starting up, it does seem to be embracing the premise a little bit stronger, and it's not going to try to be as much of a departure from the premise itself as I feel the first one was. It feels like it's just going to be a little more brass tacks and embrace the premise of people hunting predators. Though I will say that might not be true, and we might get a little lost in some of the politics, I guess, behind the government hunting predators and this private group hunting predators, and that might be bothersome. Hopefully not. Hopefully that doesn't get to be too big a plot element, and maybe it's just just a little like Predator 2, you know, which is my favorite Predator movie still, wherein you got like the main guy hunting the Predator or dealing with the Predator, and then you've got the government agency getting annoyingly involved in the thing, and hopefully that'll be the thing that happens here. I will say I was a little bothered by this opening, and I don't know. So this story is going to be set in Afghanistan, from what I can tell, and it's about a bunch of, it's about a predator killing people in Afghanistan, which makes sense because predators like heat and they like conflict. So, it's a gang war in LA, or it's a drug cartel and the government was it drugs? No, it was illegal weapons, right? In the first Predator movie, or like a guerrilla army or something like that. And the U.S. special ops and all that stuff. That makes sense. It works. To put this in Afghanistan, country that's been in war for fucking 18 years, 19 years. That's just sad. And so I don't really have a problem with the premise of putting the Predator there. Anytime I read something that characterizes the Muslim bad guy, jihadist kind of thing, my reaction is just go, it's fine to do that. Because that is a thing that exists. Is there people who identify as jihadists and yada yada, and they're you know what I mean. That is a thing that exists. I tend to think about the political implications the author passes on when they do stuff like this. I don't have a problem if you do it. I just ask that you think about what you're doing. And I'm not certain that's happening. I'm also not certain that it's not. I feel like the author here, Chris Warner, wanted to set stuff in Afghanistan, because I do admit that's a great premise. That's the exact kind of place a predator would show up. But I'm not sure that he cared too much about the actual political implications. But at the same time, I don't think that he just completely thoughtlessly put them in, because we see these jihadist guys are about to behead this dude that they've captured, and they're calling him a CIA agent, and he's like, no, I'm a private contractor from Canada, da 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 da. And then before they can behead him, the predator shows up, kills all of them, and dude says, oh God, dear God, and then the predator's just like, dear God. I love what dicks they can be. So it's not like they're, so they say the jihadists are saying he's a CIA operative and that's why we're going to behead him, and this guy's claiming not to be a CIA operative, but then the very next scene, our main characters confirm this guy was a CIA operative. And so I'm like, okay. So it's not like the jihadists are being shown to be just randomly killing innocent Westerners or whatever. It's like, no, they actually got what is effectively an enemy soldier. And again, it's not like, oh yeah, good, kill the CIA. It's nothing like that. I'm just like, it's certainly, I feel more aware and doesn't it doesn't overly paint them as the bad guys. Like obviously beheading people, not good. But, you know, there shouldn't be American government there. Like, I can get it, is what I'm getting at. Like, it feels like they're definitely being portrayed as a hostile force that the Predator would be interested in getting at. But it doesn't feel like it's painting, you know, the good Americans being attacked by the evil jihadists. No, it's pretty accurate to just the same way the Predator treats all these, like, rival gangs and stuff. So I don't know, it works for me. It's not... It didn't do anything insulting yet. Our little ragtag group of Predator hunters go to Afghanistan to try to, like, hunt the Predator down. And they show up, and there's, like, their guide, who's kind of jokey, kind of funny, and definitely seems to have a bit of a accented or loose English kind of thing. Unusually warm, even for this time of year, I am afraid. Get in line, as the Americans say. Ah, splendid vehicle. The proper documents and clearances have been secured. I can't wait to get behind the wheel. What vehicle will you be using? Haha, of course, I am joking with you. Time on the clock is ticking. We should begin our journey. There is a long drive ahead of us. It will not be very comfortable, I am afraid. Like, so, you know, he's got, like, a little bit of a, like, it's not broken English. What would you call that? Where you're used to speaking in one language where the way in which sentences are structured is different than English. And so even though you're speaking in English, your sentence structures are still slightly like they are in your native tongue. It feels like that's going on. So that just feels, you know, smartly written. And honestly, he's just got kind of like a funny gag to him. You know, not to have worries, my friend. There have been no attacks on this road for several days, I believe. But I believe Allah, the Most High, will protect me. But you infidels, perhaps not. Like, that's kind of funny. I don't know, I got a kick out of that, to be honest with you. So, like, it definitely feels like this isn't thoughtless, you know, Americans are the good guys kind of thing. And it feels like it's got some kind of thought put into it. And you're dealing with Predator, which does have this whole, like, government cover-up kind of thing behind it. So that's probably a good attitude to go into it with. I will say the scene that, like, bothered me the most, just because of how typical it felt, was here at the end, where we've got a bunch of, you know, jihadists, or whatever you want to call them, in a cave, fighting off the Predator, doing last stands and stuff. And, like, one of them, before he dies, is, like, screaming Allah Akbar. I'm like, I don't know about all that. That does feel a little much. So, I don't know. I'll keep reading it, because I do like the premise quite a bit. I'm a little shaky on how much I'm going to want to stick with it. It feels like I might find out some things about Chris Warner I didn't want to find out. But we'll see. I'm not gonna make any super harsh judgments quite yet. Philip Kelton says, hey, now that Disney owns Fox, do you think Dark Horse will lose the rights to Predator and Aliens? That's certainly possible. See, I don't know. Because IDW still has... It's IDW, right? No, it's Dark Horse. I don't know. It's not like Star Wars stuff has stopped being printed by other companies. There are deals struck, and I don't know if Marvel really has the resources to do another space book. But at the same time, man, it'd be cool if Marvel could get to do some Predator and Alien stories. Darth Vader versus Xenomorphs, anybody? I'm there for that. I don't know, that's a good question. I know a lot of the Predator and Alien fans have been really worried about what Disney's going to do with those franchises of that universe. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I bet Disney's just kicking themselves for buying the Star Wars license for like $60 billion, and then like, you know, what, 4 years later buying the Fox license for like $60 billion. They spent $100 billion. They could have just gotten the Star Wars license in there, in that whole thing. I don't know. They probably still would have had to pay off George, but still. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what Disney ends up doing. Let's go ahead and move on. Superman number 2, The Phantom Zone, Population Earth. I love that Bendis is just going full out and being like, you know, no, I'm definitely inspired by the movie's version of the Phantom Zone here to a degree. You know, we got this kind of cover and everything going. I absolutely loved how this book opened. Not gonna lie, Bendis really did grab me with this opening. My king, Myandar, the Thanagarians are here. Then Volrog has lost his mind completely. This planet belongs to the Tamaranian people, and we will stand and defend it from whatever madness the Thanagarians have brought for us. We will stand our ground no matter what. For Tamaran! For Tamaran! And of course, we've got like all like Starfire's people are Tamaranians, right? So they start rushing into battle, and then all of a sudden, you see the other side of the battle. You see Rogol Zar riding a fucking dragon-looking thing, and then the king's like, Rogol Zar! They brought Rogol Zar? Sir? Retreat! What? It's just like, holy shit. Rogol Zar just scared a king that much that he was willing to like completely retreat from battle. That's pretty goddamn crazy. So I really appreciated that. I thought that was pretty cool. So that like gives Rogol Zar a bit of a background. We also get, again, the whole Marvel method appearing in DC, and that feels so weird. It feels so weird to me. Anyway, I also love this opening scene where Superman's internal monologue talks about how he feels every day about being able to see and hear everything and not being able to turn it off. And so we get a cool little thing where Bendis establishes that no, Superman can turn off the super hearing and super sight, but he chooses not to. And the reason why is because everyone thinks he just hears all the cries for help and the you know, pain and suffering. But what he also, which he does, but what he also hears and sees is the people that come to help. And it happens billions of times every day. And he always sees it. And that's what makes him feel so good about the world. And man, that's good. I really like that. That is a great Superman moment right there. And I love that Bendis just is using these brilliant artists to just show us Superman saving the day over and over again in just, you know, a handful of panels at a time. It's so cool. You know, just saves a helicopter, stops a boat from sinking, stops an active volcano, quickly stops a robbery, and then goes to stand on the Daily Planet building and figure out his next move. And then it just cuts to him looking at Earth inside the Phantom Zone. He's like, what do I do? And I also love that Bendis is very aware that Clark Kent is meant to be a writer. And so he's like, I'm not going to say, this day sucks. I refuse. I'm a professional, award-winning journalist. and I can come up with something describing the fact that the entire planet Earth has somehow been sucked into the nightmare dimension Krypton called the Phantom Zone that is more poetic and illustrative than suck. Now, here's the interesting thing for me. I don't know why I am talking about this so much with Bendis' book. I guess it's weird how apparent of a Marvel writer he is. That line of dialogue, or internal monologue, I'm sorry, that line of internal monologue is so perfectly DC, because it reestablishes what you've already read, but if you've read the previous issues, but it also advances the character and makes it more character focused. It gives you all the information you need if this is your first issue, but it also allows you a peek back at, or allows you a peek into who the character is. So it's like all this stuff about Superman thinking about, the world working billions of times, but now he's in this nightmarish situation. He's like, no, I can think of a better way to describe this than sucks. And that this is blah, 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 blah. So it's interesting, because I didn't even bother reading this. I didn't read a word of it. I was like, okay, wait, what's this? Rocketed to Earth. Oh, yeah, okay, I'm just going to skip all that. And I just read on to the next page, and it's so much more... It was so crazy how needless that was. So I think you'll begin to see Bendis' style get adapted to DC style more and more as this goes. So that's definitely interesting. The rest of the issue is pretty much just about Clark trying to figure out with the Justice League what just happened, why the Earth is inside the Phantom Zone. We get a scene or two of Rogol Zar thinking about what just happened to him as he got put into the Phantom Zone, and he realizes where he is, and then as he's stumbling around the Phantom Zone trying to figure out what's going on, he encounters Nuclear Man, who's like the big moment that was the big news when Bendis announced, yeah, he's gonna bring Nuclear Man from Superman 4: The Quest for Peace into the comics. So he stumbles on Nuclear Man, and I love this monologue from Rogol Zar as he goes to fight Nuclear Man. That seal, that family crest, the House of El, they leave me here with their broken dreams. That was satisfying as he just fucking crushes Nuclear Man between his fists. So I don't know if Nuclear Man's coming back. I assume so. Then he notices Earth and tries to jump for Superman because he can see Superman just on the boundaries, but then can't quite make it. And so it's leading me to believe that Rogol Zar, of course, had something to do with putting Earth inside the Phantom Zone. The Flash is here, and this was a weird choice. I'd have to talk to DC's colorist. They're all trying to figure out what's going on in the Phantom Zone, but it's slowly having an effect on everybody. Like hurting them, and the Flash kind of like loses his powers and goes kind of limp. And then like Superman takes off his cowl and he's got red hair, so it's like, wait, it's Wally? What? And that doesn't seem like a colorist mistake, I don't think. Yeah, Superman definitely calls him Barry. But then we get the page flip, and Barry with red hair says, I know, Jean, I forgot. I think I forgot which Flash I was for a second. I'm like, is this intentional, or did the colorist fuck up? I don't know, that's a weird one. And so Superman's like worried about what he's gonna do to get everyone out of this situation, and I really like this closing monologue. And it is right there that it hits me. I may never see my family again. Bendis is doing it for me. This is good Superman writing. I'm quite enjoying it, to be honest with you. So, keep it going. All right, last book of the week is Supergirl, number 21. Again, like I just said, I'm really digging what Bendis is doing on the Superman title. I think he's doing really great work. He's definitely got a voice, a direction that he wants to go in, which is something that should just be obvious and apparent with Superman. A lot of people seem to have trouble with. So he's doing a lot of work to try to, just reinvigorate the Man of Steel's universe a bit, and it's working for me. And he left a really strong direction for what to do with Supergirl, and so he's laid the groundwork for a spin-off series on Supergirl. And so Supergirl, I'm glad I should have talked about this in the order I read them, but I read this before I read Superman. So, Supergirl, the whole pitch for her book is she's going to go off to space and try to find out who knew about Rogolzar and all this stuff, because there's that whole thing with the circle and yeah. So she goes, we get a background on Kara Zor-El as a character. We get her making her decision to go to space. She talks with Hal Jordan a little bit and gets him to scan Rogolzar's axe. And as Hal's like, I already scanned the symbol that your cousin showed me, but I guess if it'll make you feel better, I can scan the axe. And as the ring's scanning the axe, is like, just don't be surprised when nothing, scan completed, object identified, information redacted, turns up. So yeah, Supergirl's pretty pissed right there. She knows that someone's hiding the secrets behind Rogolzar, and is just a woman on a mission at that point. But Hal warns her about what it's like to go too far, what it's like to get wrapped up in revenge instead of justice, and yada yada. And so he's like warning her, try to play it safe. She's like, I'll consider it. And so you can tell Supergirl's really, really pissed. And it becomes fairly evident that Superman is aware of that she is kind of on the edge, and she's just experienced a huge trauma that, he can't even properly conceive of, because Krypton's important to him, but as she says, it's theoretical. So to try to comfort her and keep her from going over the edge, not that she's necessarily aware of this, Superman's sending Krypto out with her into the galaxy. And just immediately, as soon as Krypto shows up, Kara's whole attitude changes. And it's a really, I like that. I like the idea that people are aware that she might go too far, and so they're trying to take care of her in a way that is supportive and positive, as opposed to restrictive. That's really smart. I really like that. So yeah, Kara and Krypto on a space adventure to go hunt down those who knew about Rogolzar. I really like that. It's a good scene. It was a lot of fun. I dug it. And then we get the tease for the first big villain of the arc, as some weird alien guy goes and tells his master that a Green Lantern has done a scan on Rogolzar's axe, and it appears that a Kryptonian girl is now on the trail. And it's like, let her. There is no way she will uncover all of the truth. And if she gets too close, well, what is another dead Kryptonian in the scheme of things? So I guess everyone was wondering who the floaty heads were in Man of Steel #1. And I guess this is our answer. They're the villains of the Supergirl run. And you know what? I'm here for it. I'm kind of into it. Bendis really did a lot of legwork. Bendis and DC, I'll say that. They did a lot of legwork to get me kind of interested in the Superman universe again. I really I'm really invested to see what happened with John and Lois. I'm really into what Kara's going through here. And I'm liking the Superman books right now. God, I just wish this much creative force would be put behind Wonder Woman. And then it would have such a great Trinity book right now. And I really like what Steve Orlando's done in his 2 issues so far, but it's nowhere near as heavy hitting as these 2, as the Batman and Wonder Woman or Superman books are right now. So yeah, I guess I'm adding Supergirl to the poll. Should be a good time. All right. That'll do it for comic reviews, though. I don't have a trade this week, I'm afraid. Just didn't get around to it. Again, the move. So, sorry about that, folks. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you had a good time. Until next time. Bye.